Hello and welcome to Just One Question from Insights at the Edge. I'm Chris Rock.
And I'm Mallory Corbin. We're producers at the Sounds True podcast network. We work with Tammy on Insights at the Edge to bring you transformational ideas from wisdom teachers around the world.
And every week on this show, we pull out some of the most inspiring, most transformational ideas from those hundreds of conversations, and we bring them to you in the form of one question and one answer.
Thus the name, Just One Question.
We hope you enjoy.
So, Mallory, I think you know that I can be a little bit dark sometimes.
Yes, I've definitely noticed.
Did you notice that?
For sure.
Today, we're going to take a more serious look at this idea with Osho, Zenju, Earthlyn, Manuel, who was on Insights in 2023. Zenju is a poet, an ordained Zen Buddhist priest, and author of Opening to Darkness, 8 Gateways for Being with the Absence of Light in Unsettling Times.
So you picked this one because that title really called to your dark heart?
I was like, I'm home. What really struck me was in this clip that we'll share, Zenju talks about when she had this severe anaphylactic reaction and she wasn't able to breathe. And she got through it by accepting this in what she called the darkness, and accepting this absence of light and not being afraid. And another thing that you might not know is that I've actually had episodes where I can't breathe myself. My throat closes up.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And the only way that I can breathe again is to relax.
Yeah, it's pretty counterintuitive.
Right. So her story really struck me because she was having this moment, and I've had these moments where you have to change your mindset to get through this really terrifying thing. And she does that by accepting it in what she calls accepting the darkness or the absence of light.
That's really interesting because I feel like so many other teachers are kind of teaching you to look for that light at the end of the tunnel. So Zenju is telling us, just go through the tunnel even if you can't see the light.
Right. Nothing but tunnel.
Okay, we're going.
We're
going. So here is Tammy Simon asking Osho, Zenju, Earthlyn, Manuel the question, how can we accept darkness?
Stay with us.
First, when you were talking about darkness as the absence of light, I had a moment of like, I don't know if I know that darkness. That was my first thing. Like, I thought darkness has this like sparkle in it, even when that was my first place. I was like, I don't understand the absence of light. I want to understand that, but I'm not sure I do. And then as you shared a story later in the book about an experience you had with anaphylactic shock, where you almost died. And you talked about the allergic reaction you had and how it was hard for you to breathe and everything. Then suddenly I had a moment of, oh, I get what the absence of light is. Because like most people, I've had experiences of being very, very ill and wondering if I was going to make it. I mean, I think a lot of people have had some experience like that. And there's no light in that experience. Let's just say it the way it is. It's looking at death. You're looking at death and looking at it. And in my own experience, I was like, okay, now I understand the absence of light. So I'm just curious just to take a moment and step back. And I'd love to hear your thoughts about this whole notion of the absence of light. And maybe you could also share your discoveries of that experience you had when you went into anaphylactic shock. 'Cause it was so powerful.
Yeah. So when you were talking about, you see little sparkly things in darkness, I challenge you, what is that sparkly thing? And when we say we see light, what is that? Is it something of our mind, something of the movies, something of a book, something of something else outside of ourselves? What's sparkling? What's shining? And is it shining? Even when in the book I talk about light not being, you can't see it either. You can't see light, really. Personally, that's what I believe. It's just as unknown as darkness. And I think that that's what makes it very frustrating to be in the dark and to be in dark experiences, because you don't know where it is and you don't know how to get out of the darkness. So you're just in there. You've been taught to wait for this light, to wait for whatever gifts darkness has. What if we don't strip the darkness? We're just there. And I'm not talking about wallowing in it until you've lost your mind, or if you don't have a mental capacity to do it, I think you should not, or if you do it, get help. So I want to say that it's not for everybody to do a dark practice. So, but even though the darkness is right there, even the thing that's keeping you from being in it. So I feel like when I had that anaphylactic shock, I could tell I went to my neighbor's house when I was having it. I was having it at her house, and then I went upstairs to my apartment. And that's when I began to notice I couldn't breathe, and I was hanging my head out the window trying to breathe, and that wasn't doing anything. And I said, oh my God, I really can't breathe. So I called 911, and I was able to do that. And of course, I couldn't talk. And so the next thing is I ran to the bathroom because I noticed I couldn't see either. And my eyes were like golf balls. They were all purple, huge out here. And I said, oh my God. And I couldn't walk. I could tell I was getting weak. And so I crawled back down the stairs to my friend's apartment. And the way she looked at me was like, you're going to die. I could feel it without her saying any of those words. And so she brought me in, she had a Benadryl, which is a antihistamine, right? She stuffs it down my throat with her finger because the throat is closed, right? So she stuffs it down in me and proceeds to go to bed, and I do too. And so the next morning, so I'm laying there though, before the morning comes, I'm laying there and I'm going, I can't not breathe. And I am dying here. I didn't say it to her, I just knew I was dying in my own little space where I was laying down. And somehow I just heard this voice say, use your skin. Breathe through your skin. Your skin can breathe. And I just laid there and kind of pretended that the skin was my diaphragm, or everything. It was my lungs, everything that would help to breathe. And of course, I did not go to sleep. The morning came. My friend rushed off to work. I'm still in my room, in my bed. And I decided, I think I better, everything has gone down a little bit. I decided on the inside, I decided to go to the doctors, and on my own, drove, can barely see. I'm like holding my eyes up like this to see. When I get there, the doctors are like, they look at me like I just got up out of my grave, and they brought me into a room really fast. And I said, they said, you had an anaphylactic shock. They said it. And I said, yes. And they said, you had a full-blown one that should have killed you. No one lives through a full-blown anaphylactic shock. And I said, well, my friend gave me a Benadryl. He said, no, that's too small of a thing. You would have needed a whole lot more than that. And brought in all the doctors to look at me. And they kind of just blessed me and say, whatever you're here to do in your life, to do it. There was no light in the sense that we talk about light. Something bright, a major transformation from that experience. But it was staying with and not trying to get out, not struggling. I really feel if I would have struggled, I would have died. I really felt that, but I did not. I did not struggle. I was not afraid. I don't know why, but I was not afraid. And that is a way, I think, when I share that experience in the book, it's that, I think, inner way of allowing life to be what it is, even though it doesn't measure up to how you want to be in the moment. Okay, it is my body betraying me. Why am I leaving? All of a sudden, there's so many other things I could have, died from. And here, what has happened? I don't even know what has happened. I didn't even know it was an anaphylactic shock, and maybe that was good. I was clueless to all of that. And I think that kind of being with it and dwelling with it all those hours was a discovery that there is something, the darkness, the essential darkness, and we want to call it abundant or expansive, all of that has something to say to us and to give to us. Now, we don't go get the gifts. I'm looking for a gift. Oh, darkness should have gave me a gift. Oh, darkness gave me the gift of life. But I think it was beyond that. It was beyond gift of life. It was just an awakening in its very subtle way, not a big bang, a very subtle way of showing me how I could breathe without breathing. I mean, it was closed. Nose, throat, everything was closed. There was no flow. I'm serious, no flow through my body. And so I feel that I'm still exploring it, will always explore it, as to what is this darkness in the absence of light. So kind of inviting everybody to let go of this whole light, the sparkle you talk about. Even if you think you see it, to let it go. And to not say, I know what it is, or to, force people like to come out, like if they're not feeling in a way that you want them to feel, oh, come on, let's go do this and you'll feel better. You'll get happy. Come on out. Stop crying, stop wallowing these things we say to each other, or they decide, oh, it should be about over now. Whatever you're dealing with should be over, because when I deal with things, it's over within a month. And you've gone on too long now. It's 6 months. I think it might be the scariest thing for us to think of ourselves falling into some dark well, like while we're taking a walk or something, and suddenly falling into the ground, into the dark pit, So it's being there. You can't really see into it, but you can feel that you're there. You can feel that you're there. You can maybe even see it if you are in a dark hole, or something has happened in which you can't no longer see with your eyes. There's so many dimensions to light and dark when we talk about it, even myself. When we're talking about it, it's almost ridiculous because it's so beyond us. It's so beyond us as human beings. But there it is. And we do have words for what we think we're feeling, we think we're seeing. But yet there's something beyond that. And that's what I want to explore, so that when we get the true essence of it, what's been imposed in terms of fear about it, fear of darkness, or what's been imposed about stay away from, avoid darkness at all costs. What we've learned to me is to stay away from life. Basically, you cannot not have darkness.
This has been Just One Question. You can listen to the full episode of Insights at the Edge that this conversation was taken from on your preferred podcast platform or at soundstrue.com. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
The Sounds True Podcast Network.